So in today's video, I want to share all the things I wish I knew about friendships a lot earlier in my life. So I think it was a while ago, but I remember doing research for this channel and I came across this kind of like trend of I have no friends. And it was the most depressing thing in the world. And I just was going through the comments and just seeing how people just felt like lonelier than ever. And so today I want to share all the friendship tips that I wish I knew in my 20s and early 30s, because something that no one really tells you as you get older is like, one, your friends will either pass away, they'll die, or they'll break up with you. Two, making friends becomes a lot harder as you get older. You tend to have like less encounters. Like in college, you'd run into people in class and parties or the club, but as you're in your 30s and you stop doing those things, those interactions become a lot less. And then three, I think there's this element of nostalgia or the good old days back in the day where you're just comparing your old life to your life now. In addition, I also think your relationships in your 30s isn't like your 20s. Like one, you're more career driven. And like one thing I've noticed, at least for me, is that friendships in my 30s is way different than my 20s. Like in my 30s, I have more, not necessarily a career, but I have my business goals. And I've noticed like a lot of my friends even starting families and them drifting away and focusing toward that. Can't blame them. The second thing is maybe you're like me and you're single as fuck and you're the odd one out and you're trying to find other people that you can just hang out with, and it becomes less and less and less. Or maybe your social circle is shrinking, like I mentioned earlier, for like because they're starting families, or the friends that you have now don't fit where you're headed. Like for example, I went to go visit my friends back in Boston. We get along, but it's definitely not the same anymore. And so in today's video, I want to share my honest advice about friendships, what works, what doesn't, how to make new friends, and honestly how to build better, deeper connections that actually matter as you get older too. So let's dive into it. So the goal of every relationship is to have a resentment-free relationship. So get this, back in the day, I used to have a friend who just didn't have any EQ skills, or she was just really socially awkward. I met her back in the day in Boston. We would always go clubbing. We would have the same mutual friends. It was super fun. Like I have tons of pictures with this person if you look on my Facebook and stuff like that. You know, there are small things about this person. Like for example, like when we went out to eat, she would never offer to pay. She was like one of those people. And like when you're younger, you kind of overlook those things. And I also had a lot of trouble like setting boundaries with people. So I paid for things and I was like, whatever. And then she also like, I remember one time, keep in mind, I was pretty toxic back in LA with this like relationship. I was on and off with this girl. My friend had this thing where she would always invite my ex right after we broke up. I don't know why. She would always invite me, and this would always happen. I was like, you do realize that me and blah, blah, blah broke up. And then she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God. It's those type of friends where it's like, damn, I don't know if you're intentionally doing it or this is like, you're just like socially awkward or you just don't get it. But I don't know. I don't think that's really cool, you know? Or at least you would give me a heads up, right? And I don't think it's a right or wrong thing. And people are socially off. It's like whatever, right? But I realized at that moment, I kind of outgrew that relationship. I think over time, she eventually became super cool with my ex, which is totally cool. But I realized like, you know, if we kept on talking and we kept our relationship the way it was, I'd ultimately hold this resentment, and it's kind of like this bitter taste in my mouth. What I realized in those moments, it's just best to disconnect from someone rather than have a resentful relationship. And when you disconnect with someone, I've had moments where it doesn't mean it's forever, but it's just right now things just don't align, and that's a lesson I learned. And by the way, if you're asking, yeah, I had to sit down and talk with her. I was like, hey dude, this like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't like, in the future, if you're planning to invite this person, just don't invite me. You know, I'll just make it really easy on yourself. Just don't invite me. I won't be offended or anything like that. To avoid that resentment, that bitterness, I just realized like, yo, she's just not a close friend. She's an acquaintance, and that's cool. Just like with any business arrangements too, like I've learned this is true for business. This is true for romantic, platonic, any type of relationship, that if we're both holding resentment, it's just not worth it. And the inevitable is going to happen anyways. One person is going to snap and the relationship's not going to work out. It's kind of like the mother-father, like when your Asian parents beat your ass or yell at you for doing something wrong. That's how I internally felt at times. But the older I get, the more I realize, oh, by setting boundaries, it's like, hey, these are the things I'm cool with, these are the things I'm not. And as I get older, I really learn to like follow my intuition on these. And one of my good friends was like, yo, Kevin, go to where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And I think that's really important. Rather than basing a friendship off history, it's really important to make sure that it's resentment free as possible. but hell, we're all human. If letting go feels hard, just remember all relationships end one way or the other. I think if you check on this channel, I had this friend who unalived himself pretty recently. I was in Boston, I was sitting at his funeral and just like reflecting on like how temporary this life is. And before you're like, oh damn, this is really serious. It's really not. It's not going to go too dark, by the way, so don't worry about it. But something I realized is like, man, this person I looked up to all my life, and he was like a real big role model for me. We used to go clubbing. I remember there was a time where I was going through a breakup with another ex. If you can't tell, I've been through a few breakups in my early 20s. But he just drove out to New York and just checked on me. And I never had anything like against him or anything like that. We actually had a really great relationship, and I was going to go see him. And on one hand, it might seem like really sad. This is a fact of life. But like while I was sitting at my friend's funeral, I was just like, I actually find this actually quite refreshing, because I realized there's no way of up a relationship if we think about it like this, right? I used to have a lot of trouble setting boundaries and just telling people how I really felt about things. People pleasing was like really big for me. As I'm like getting better at setting these boundaries and just communicating better what's going on my end, I realized that even if things don't go as expected, all relationships end anyways, right? And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I think by doing this, it really relieves a lot of pressure of like relationships. Like, for example, if you're having like some sort of fallout with a friend, if you feel called to repair the relationship, great, you can do that. If you don't, that's totally cool. But either way, it ultimately does not matter. But personally, I think like talking about it is way more beneficial than just avoiding it. But not every single friendship warrants that energy or conversation too. The best way to make friends is to try new things, go to events, and host events. So I was actually in Vancouver probably like a month or two ago, and I was actually hosting a dinner with a bunch of my friends. Now, these people, they were really random. Like, some of them were my former clients for high ticket sales. Some of them I met through Clubhouse. Yeah, that app that you just like voice chat, which is like Twitter Spaces. One of them I actually met on a sales call through Ali Abdal's group, and we became friends. She's part of my mastermind now. And then Vanessa Lau, who I met like a few years ago at a mastermind. At the time, I felt like really nervous as because I was like, oh man, I'm in the city. I don't know if this restaurant's good. I don't know if people like will eat this stuff. I don't know if it'll be fun. And I just hate coordinating stuff in general. I was just watching my friends like interact with each other. And it was such an amazing feeling, because I was like, ooh, this is really interesting. They're talking about human design, or they're talking about like their YouTube channel, or they're talking about mutual friends that they have in the area. And it just felt very, very rewarding that like I was able to connect people together. One thing that sticks out in my mind is like, as I was talking to my friend after dinner, he was saying that, man, Kevin, you're just like such a super connector. And it's something that I've noticed people call me. Like Christo has like commented on it. Vanessa has called me a super connector. I think if you ask the majority of my close friends, they'll be like, yo, Kevin, you know a lot of different people. And it's like, oh man, it didn't always feel this way though, right? Like I had multiple arcs. Like I had my Hong Kong arc, my LA arc, my Las Vegas arc, which is my current arc. I'll probably have Asia arc in the future. It never started by hosting events first. It always started like this. Like I would try new activities. So I would go to a new coffee shop that was in the area. I would do something new. Like I'm thinking about doing Muay Thai. And I would just meet these really, really cool people. And at first you're just like, man, it's kind of intimidating, like talking people or cold approaching. But the thing is, with these type of things, like you already have a mutual interest. I find that a lot of time, a lot of the anxiety comes from like not having anything in common and having these really awkward pauses. And so when I talk about something like, oh yeah, I learned this new jujitsu move or this new half guard entry or a leg lock or something like that, I find myself like engaging with the person and going really, really deep. Another thing I loved going to is like bookstores, because I have a lot of books. I love reading myself. I have like 6 bookcases in this room. So it always starts off like that. But every once in a while, I would meet a super connector. These people would actually host events. Like one of my friends, like when I was coming here to Vegas, my friend Tina, she would always host like a holiday party, or she would always host like a themed party like Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, right? And it was just a great excuse to just get people together. And that's something I appreciate about her. Eventually, I started meeting people too, and I was like, I think my friends of my friends would actually get along with each other. I realized that a lot of my other friends felt lonely too. Most people not talk about how lonely they are, how they wish they had more friends and stuff. I don't want to say it's as taboo as like money or anything like that, but it's pretty up there. And if you're like me, you might be intimidated by starting something like really big. I love starting something small, something I already enjoy. Like, for example, one of the things I do is like I go to arcade, I go play games. If I'm going to do that already, might as well invite like a few different people that want to get to know each other. Kind of like recently, maybe half a year ago, I did a belated birthday party where I invited all my friends together. Some of them didn't, but it's all good. I think being that person who is always trying to introduce people together is a great way to like help people around you without like putting actual like work or effort into things, if that makes sense. But as you meet people, who are the red flags? This brings me to my next point. Stay away from transactional relationships. So over time, I've learned to really prioritize this. This is actually pretty recent. I actually met a girl through the Part-Time YouTuber Academy by Ali Abdals. Really great program, one of my favorites. But I met this girl probably like a year or two ago, and at first we were really chill. Like, it was really cool. She was just starting out her YouTube channel, and then she started posting like shorts and stuff. They did really well, by the way, on Instagram, and she started blowing up. And then I remember I was like, oh my God, congratulations. Like, dude, that's awesome that you're blowing up on Instagram. And then she was like, yeah, but I'm actually debating whether I should quit my job or not and launch my own brand. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. She had a really niche brand. I don't want to give it away because they'll probably reveal her identity. But I remember she was feeling really stuck. I jumped on a really quick call and was like, hey, what's on your mind? What's going on and stuff? And she asked me for advice on how to quit. And I'm not like an expert or anything like that, but I do have experience about that. And I'm like, yeah, based off everything I see, like, you're on a great trajectory. This should be something that you're so happy for, and there's just so much you can do. Eventually she launched her own product, and I was like super happy for her because, like, you know, this was something that she really wanted to do, and just being able to see a friend go through that, it's amazing. And I was congratulating her behind the scenes. And then one day, quite recently, I was like, yo, it's been forever, how are you, like, what's up? And she sent me a really weird message back. She was like, hey, Kevin, I'd appreciate if you just never talk to me again. I'm shutting down this Instagram, which she didn't, by the way. And I'm going to be spending time with the person I love for the rest of my life. I appreciate it. I felt so confused because, like, one, I wasn't really hitting on her, right? I wasn't attracted to her like that. And I never was like flirtatious. It was always very platonic and stuff. And then kind of weird. But after that feeling settled, almost felt like very used, because when she needed me, she was so responsive. When she didn't, or probably didn't see a use to keep our relationship, she just cut me out when she didn't need me anymore. One of the reasons why I really appreciate friendships a lot is because, like, growing up, I really didn't have too many, and I was always the type of person to be a lot closer to my friends versus like my actual family. One of my friends, he said this really great quote. He's like, hey, Kevin, I hate that shit happened to you, man. And it's like, you need to find friends who like you for who you are, not what you can do for them. And when I reflect on it, I think about how my best relationships, they all feel effortless. Good friends should feel like that. It doesn't mean like you don't put any effort in, but I think the word might be frictionless. The best friends feel frictionless. And something I realized was like noticing those people that only come when they need help, and just being very cognizant whether I want them in my life or whether I don't. So let's go into the next lesson. Boundaries are meant to protect a relationship, not end it. Growing up, I never really knew what boundaries were, right? Like, I remember trying to set a boundary with my dad back in the day and be like, hey, Dad, I don't, like, I forgot what it is. I thought, like, my dad would do this thing where he would always barge into my room. And I remember asking my dad, hey, Dad, can you at least, like, knock or something, like, if you're going to open the door? And then I remember my dad, like, yelling at me. He's like, you shouldn't be closing your door anyways. And he just beat my ass. That's my earliest, like, recollection of like trying to set boundaries. And I think internally, because of those moments, like with my dad or like Asian parenting, every single time someone wanted to talk, I always felt like it was an interrogation of what I did wrong. It's kind of like when a girl asks you like, oh, I think we need to talk. It's never a freaking good thing. And my alarm always like goes off in my head. I'm like, oh my God. And so this concept of being a boundary, like boundaries are meant to protect relationships, was really new until I started doing kind of these mental health coaching sessions with Dr. K's team, Healthy Gamer GG. Really great, by the way. I think the reason why I would people please so much is because it was just so much easier just giving people what they want than trying to stick up for what I wanted or communicating what I wanted. And over time, like resentment would build up and just ruin the relationship, right? Luckily for a lot of people I've met in my life, it hasn't been to the point where like people are using me all the time. Most people are actually really respectful, but every once in a while you get some people who see that opportunity, they take advantage of it, which I can't blame them. And so recently I actually had a friend who asked me help for YouTube. That actually happens a lot. I was like, look at their channel. I'm like, oh my God, we've had this conversation so many times, like about how to help your channel and all this. And I just looked at her channel and there's nothing posted up since the last time we spoke. And I remember like prior to this moment, like a few years ago, we talked about a plan, the content strategy, all this, and pouring all this energy into this, and nothing was done with it. And I was like, what a freaking waste of time. And at that moment, you can probably hear in my voice, at that moment, I felt this resentment. I was like, if I keep on doing this, if I keep on giving this for free, this relationship is going to ultimately die, and it's not cool with me. And so something I've learned to do is like create certain boundaries or like containers on like what I'm cool with and what I'm not cool with. And this actually bleeds into business too, because you know, when people want to work with you, that's why we have certain offers, because we can be like, hey, I offer this or this, like these are options if you want to work with me. If none of these work, hey, totally cool, you know, but this is what I have. I pretty much told my friend, I was like, hey man, I just want to be very transparent. I've been having a lot of trouble like setting boundaries with people, and I'm trying to get better at it. Talking more about your YouTube channel and all that, I don't think would be the best use of my energy. And I honestly would prefer just to keep it like, if I'm going to do any YouTube like strategy stuff, I just prefer to keep it professional, right? And so I have a free course that I'm launching, I have my mastermind. And I remember as I was talking through it, at first I was like, wait, I could feel my like heart pounding, because I was just like, okay, I feel nervous as doing it, but after the experience I was like, oh man, I feel great, because I'm really respecting myself, I'm protecting my energy, and like protecting the relationship to prevent the resentment in it, because like I said, the resentment is the silent killer of all relationships. What I've realized by doing this, because I do get a lot of requests for this, is that the good friends, they will always understand and work to save the relationship, whereas the transactional people will just fizzle out and you'll never hear from them again, which is totally cool in my book. Okay, let's dive into the next lesson. Don't force relationships. The truth is, I think with any relationship, we're going to have some conflicts. We're going to have some setbacks. There are going to be disagreements. I think this is totally normal, by the way. But when things like this come up, I think it's important to realize that whoever's triggered, it's their responsibility to bring up the issues with you. At the time, I would consider a good friend. When I first came to Vegas, we linked up. He would invite me to events. He introduced me to his friends, and I thought everything was cool with us. Then one day, I just noticed him starting to avoid me, and I'm not sure why he did it. And even to this day, I still have no idea why. It was kind of sad, because we would actually grab dinner together. We would go grab boba together. We would co-work together at random boba shops. And he was a really good friend. Of course, like noticing something like this, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I noticed that there seems to be something up. It's been a while since we last caught up. Like, how are you doing these days and all that? But you could tell like he just didn't want to do it. And it's like, okay, as I mentioned earlier, the best relationships feel very frictionless. To this day, I don't know what I did to like piss him off, but no, at the end of the day, like if he really wanted to continue a friendship with me, we just talk about it, right? So I still see him time to time. It does feel awkward at times, but at first I felt like kind of hurt, because you know, I consider him a good friend. But you realize that, you know, it's not always you. It doesn't take a rocket science, but he was just trying to avoid me. And something I learned was like not to force the relationships. There's some people that are just going to come in and out of your life. And I think we have to be okay with it, even though it might not feel great in the moment. That's where it goes back to like, hey, we all die one day. None of this is going to matter. It's not a big deal, right? And so I think I can sleep at night knowing that I tried reaching out to him. I was the one that made the last attempt. If he doesn't want to talk about it, that's totally cool too, you know? but I did everything on my end. And I realized that it's their responsibility to bring up their issues with you. You can always help facilitate it. I think that's a nice bonus, but you're never required to bring it up from your end. Consider getting a mental health coach or a therapist to get different perspectives. So as I'm like sitting in my room and I'm like reminiscing on all these stories, the common theme that I kind of see is like, oh, am I the asshole, right? And I tend to get in my head and overthink about like, okay, I asked this could happen, right? And something that has really helped me, and I don't have a plug for any of this stuff, by the way, I don't have a better health like thing or anything like that, but something that has helped me is getting like a trusted advisor. And a trusted advisor could be a really good friend, it could be a mental health coach, pretty much anyone that has high EQ, that doesn't have stakes in the situation, that can look at everything objectively and just tell you the honest truth. And not only telling you the honest truth, right? Because there's truth telling, but there's also being tactful about it, like where it doesn't trigger the ego, where it's like, okay, it's a perspective shift. Because what I realized is that they ask me questions about like different perspectives. They'll remind me to be like, yo, when your friend just like didn't want to meet up with you and ghosted you, how did that make you feel? What did you kind of learn from that? What are some things that you kind of did to contribute? I find that having these advisors have really helped me kind of like see when I'm feeling resentment, point out like certain emotions that I feel that I might not be seeing because I'm in the moment. They also remind me if I'm the toxic ABB in the situation or if I'm the... And honestly, they're just really great people that I can just like lean into whenever I get punched in the face, because we are all human. We all like have these like feelings and make mistakes and stuff too. Having people like Dr. K's mental health coaching, having my old therapist, having my friend Dr. Eugene Choi kind of talk things over has really, really helped me in my life. And I would really like suggest that if you're going through a major transition or breakup, or like you want to get better at your friendships, having this advisor to help give you a different perspective can make things better. Because I really do believe it's because of these people where I'm a lot more empathetic about like, oh, maybe I should handle it like this, or maybe I should like come at people like in this way, or maybe I should be more mindful of my words. What I learned is a good coach, therapist will ask you questions to unlock your inner guidance. They're not always there to tell you what to do, but they're there to guide you on how to think towards the inner wisdom that you've had all these years. The last thing I just want to say is that if you're came to the end of this video and you find that you're losing more friends, just to reframe things, you're probably not losing them. As I've kind of realized, you're just being more selective with your friends, which is a good thing. It means that you're growing. Anyways, those are my secrets on like how I've been able to make better relationships and make new friends in my 30s. I hope these things will help you feel less lonely. Anyways, here's another video that the YouTube algo thinks you'll like. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Peace, my people. Bye.